Hi, Janet. Hi, Matt.
Hello.
Hi. How are you lovely people today? Staying warm?
Yeah, trying for sure.
Staying dry?
I'm ready to move. Not prepared, even though I'm here every year.
I was laughing with my dad this morning because, they're up north, so they're already getting cold and snow and rain and sleet and nastiness, and we're like, yeah, we're getting it early this year down here too. Ricky's joining.
Oh, Ricky's joining. My goodness.
That's awesome.
Of course he's joining.
That's amazing. I've never met him.
You should put him on mute. Make sure he can't talk.
Oh, that's hilarious. Hi, Fricky. We were just talking about you. We saw you joining.
He's on PTO today, actually.
Oh, cool. Rachel. Hi, sweetie.
Hey, Brandy. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am doing well. It's been a busy Monday, but it's been good.
Lovely to see you. It's been a minute.
I know. It's been a while. Good to see you too.
Yeah.
So we got off mute now.
Hi. I've never met you. I've heard so much about you, but I've never gotten to meet you before.
Oh, pleased to meet you.
It's so nice to meet you too. Yeah, so we'll just hang out here for a minute, guys. We usually wait just a couple minutes even after 12 as people get off other calls and start to join. And then what you'll see is that people just start to join throughout the call as well, if you're paying attention to that. So they just kind of come in and out as they can. And then this is recorded. So if you don't want this on YouTube after it's done, tell me and I won't put it up on YouTube. But if you don't mind, if it goes really well, then I'll put it up and out there for everybody to see. So, and we do have people that go listen to these things afterward. So
great.
Yeah. So Rachel, meet Matt, and meet Janet, and meet Fricky, and Matt, meet Janet, Rachel, and Fricky. Let's see, Fricky and Matt were at Sabre with me. So that's how I know those guys. And then I've met Janet through the job transition networking groups. And Rachel, how the hell did we meet?
I think it was a networking event. I think it was Frisco Connect.
Awesome. Yeah, we met at Frisco Connect a long time ago. Yeah, that's right. Yep. So that's how I'm all connected with y'all today. How was the weekends?
Pretty good. It was nice having cool weather this weekend. I enjoyed snuggling up and not it being in the 70s.
That's good. I have five cats here at the house, so I had lots of snuggle bugs too.
I love that.
And when it's cold, they're all like, home. It's like, okay, I have a cat blanket right now. I can't.
Yeah. It's cute.
Yeah. It's cute until you're trying to get some sleep at night and they're taking up half the bed.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to kick them out. Yeah.
Rachel.
We hear you, Janet.
I was just going to say, I'm going to have to reach out to you definitely for sure, because there's things I see on your profile that I'm like, I have to talk to her.
Yeah, of course. Happy to connect. Janet, where are you from? Are you from Texas, or do you live somewhere else?
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because when I first moved to Dallas, my first job, I answered the phone one day at work, and this man was like, where in the heck are you from? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm from Texas. And so he's like, well, your accent. So I guess my accent's going away. So I grew up in Lubbock, but I live here in Dallas now.
Yeah, that's great. Very cool. What about you, Matthew? Where are you from?
All over. So typically every 2 years I move, as long as I've been at a place in a while. So Texas, about 7 years now, I think.
Nice.
I think 7. Oh. So, but yeah, Pricky could tell you better. He's better at remembering my work anniversaries than I am. I think he gets reminders, maybe. I'm not sure. So. It's always like, man, you made it another year. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I can see it on the profile, Matthew, so it's easy for me.
Oh, there you go. See, cheating.
I think I was at Sabre 7-8 years too. It went by fast. I was doing, but I got to do lots of different roles there when I was there. I got to jump around almost every year to do something different, which was really fun.
Oh yeah, I've only done 2 jumps, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been saying when I was recruiting a few years ago at the development team, I was telling them I've been with Sabre for a while and I've done everything I wanted to in Sabre. I've had lots and lots of opportunities since there's so many things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to work in the airline side. I got to work on the Travelocity side. I got to work on the travel agency side, and then I was in innovation. So yeah, it was fun. Hi, Stacy. All right, I'm going to share my screen.
Sorry.
How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good. Okay, let's can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. So here's what we're going to do to kick this off today. We are going to have each one of you just, you know, share with the group who you are, where you started, what's been your progression to where you are today. You can share how we met, or you know, anything about that you want about our connection if you'd like. But it's just a minute or opportunity for everybody just to get to know who we're talking to today. So we're going to go left to right. We'll start with you, Matt. Go ahead and just share with everybody you how you got to where you are today.
All right. So my name's Matthew Rushing, and I started out with I would say a rocky start. So I never wanted to go to college. I was very uninterested in it because to me it was just like a rubber stamp, right? And I already knew that I was very capable, could do whatever I put my mind to. And just the idea of having to grind through 4 years seemed exhausting to me. So I wasted 2 years and a lot of money at a private college because I just could not engage, right? So took a year off and went back, finished up my bachelor's in information system technology with a concentration in cybersecurity. And I started out in Denver, Colorado. And so I worked for a managed security services company. And so essentially what that company is, for people that may not know, a bunch of different companies pay you to manage their infrastructure so that if they get sued, they can pass the buck to you. That's essentially the biggest benefit of it. So it's not that you have the security expertise, it's for the legal liability reasons. At least that's my take on it. So,
Yep.
so I started out there, and
America,
you know, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But got to do a lot of different roles actually. That it was a company that basically paid you an experience. They didn't pay very high compared to some of my peers who went on and made around, you know, like 80K starting. So I made around 40K starting, I think, at the time, which is a very long time ago. But I got to touch everything under the sun. So you name it, cybersecurity, I've done it. Got to do forensics, like actual, was on a couple police cases. So got to go through some computers looking for proof of things that happened, or if there wasn't proof. And network forensics, yeah, you name it, I've done it. So from there, I came over to Sabre actually, and I was employed to build a SIM. So it's about a $10 million a year contract, and we deployed globally.
Matt,
in a SIM.
yeah, I was just gonna ask if you could explain what a SIM was for everybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, so a SIM is basically, I'm trying to think about an easy way to explain it. So you take all of your relevant data from your network, from your environment, and you send it all to the SIM. And then the SIM is going to basically aggregate that data, and you'll be able to quickly look through it, and you'll be able to set up rules and like machine learning in order to look for malicious activity.
Gotcha.
I think that's an easy way to explain it.
Very clear.
And so it's a really powerful tool. It's something that any enterprise class company needs, because you just have so much exposure to being attacked. And it's a really good way to find stuff quickly and be able to have a trail of data to follow to figure out what's going on. So that's what I did for about 3 years. And then I moved over to the current team that I'm on today, Freaky's team, who we've met in the call. And so for that team, I would say I act kind of as an information security officer. And so I advise and consult on a lot of different security matters for Sabre, which I enjoy more because it's more people focused. That was the one thing that I haven't liked about some of the historical cybersecurity jobs. It's you're just looking at a screen all day. And, if you're talking to people, you're probably not doing what you should be doing. So that's been enjoyable to get more exposure to the different teams, find out more kind of what teams are doing and how I can add value. So I think that would be a brief arc of my history.
Do you remember how we met at Sabre?
I actually don't. I just remember encountering you, but I can't remember what the reason was. So.
Yeah, so somewhere in there, Matt and I met and got along real well, and we both have an interest in psychology. And so when, of course, you guys know me, I'm always having everybody take this Gallup CliftonStrengths assessment so that I can get to know them and study them and talk about it. So he was very interested in that assessment when I brought it up and took it. And we've had just tons of good, deep conversations about his strengths, my strengths, other people's strengths. And you can see over here that, let's click on your profile real quick, that he has strategic, individualization, communication, relator, and analytical. And the ones we were really focusing on today that both Rachel and Matt share are the strategic, individualization, and communication. So we'll come back to this in a minute, but let's hop over to Rachel really quick. Rachel, do you mind sharing with the group who you are?
Of course. Well, my name is Rachel Tyler. Happy to be here today. I come from a background of communications, of marketing, and sales. So I graduated from Ouachita Baptist University in 2016 and started my career out in sales for a couple years. Really wanted to do a role with a little more creativity. I felt like sales almost put me a little bit in a box. While it was great connecting with people and I love that element of the job, I have a passion for writing, for innovating, and kind of thinking of things in different ways. So that's when I discovered marketing as potentially a really good fit to kind of bridge that gap between some of the passions I really enjoyed and still having the opportunity to present to people, to have that interaction, but to have a little more color to it and creativity. So I started doing some contract marketing work to kind of work my way into that, and then got on with a agency. Worked there for about a year, doing digital project management, really just learning agency life. And after that job, I moved to the organization I'm at right now called Dunham & Company. We're a marketing and fundraising agency that works with for-profit Christian organizations, nonprofits, and then also just churches and ministries just to help them further their impact. So I've been here for about 3 years now, and honestly just love the job that I do because it's an opportunity to really just be innovative and to get hands-on marketing practice with our clients and experience. I've really been lately kind of leaning more into UX, into that part of marketing. I'm dabbling more in SEO and content communications. I think that's a really exciting part of my job. And then I also just really enjoy branding. So anything to do with messaging, how to position a product or a brand in general, I think is something that I'm just really passionate about in general. So that's just a little bit about me.
Yep, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I think like one thing that when you and I were talking about your strengths that, you know, we really came around to was the bigger picture was more comfortable for you. And I think that it's difficult when people are younger in their careers and they're trying to, you know, do all the, let's say, groundwork, you know, that people that come out of college do in order to create the experience that they need to start taking on the higher level roles and the bigger picture level roles. But I think as you've been given some opportunity to do that, you've had a lot more success. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so too. And it's interesting looking at this portal and seeing how the strengths stack. I think it might be under leadership style, which we'll probably get to later, but it does kind of, several of them fall under a bit more of like that directing kind of role rather than just simply executing or obviously innovating or organizing. You know, it's kind of more in that futuristic, seeing the bigger picture, wanting to think ahead. And yeah, I think that's
and you guys can see on her profile that she does have the execution back here at the back half of this graph, but it really is her number 6, 7, and 9 strengths and number 10. So if we switch this back over to top 5, you see that she really, if you know, she can do the execution side, but where her sweet spot is, where she really feels comfortable and probably produces more, is going to be up front, where she's sitting there coming up with the strategic plan, coming up with the strategic communication plan, helping the company understand where its future is going, and then being able to communicate that vision out to other people and setting that direction for others, while at the same time getting them excited about the direction that they're going, probably through your great communication. That's your influence, and also your learner, just teaching them and getting them excited through kind of an onboarding attribute. And then also you can step in and just really understand how to communicate to each individual, right? How to help each individual learn what you're trying to teaching them. So you're always thinking about how to customize a communication, customize a presentation, you know, really understand who your audience is in order to present something well to them, to get them to buy into the direction. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's spot on.
Yeah. Any questions for Rachel or Matt yet? People? Not yet. Okay. All right. So let's go back then to this guy here. Okay. So we can see that the 3 strengths that you guys share are strategic communication, individualization. So well, let's go back to Matt here. Matt, if you could just share with the group how you see these 3 strengths of yours really interplaying well together to generate a result, we would appreciate hearing from you, because this group just comes together in order to understand people and the strengths, and they get so much more out of hearing it from you than from hearing my interpretation of you.
Sure. So I don't know the exact way to phrase it, but I guess I would say that anytime I want something from someone, so that's going to sound really manipulative. That's not what it is, you know. So for an example would be within like my company, if there's something that I need to get accomplished, right? So like being strategic, I'm going to figure out my strategy of who to approach, who the right person is. And then communication and individualization, I'm going to be able to really tailor the message to that person to really hone in on getting the result I want, right? And so I think those 3 things play really well together. Actually, I feel one of the ways that I'm most effective is when I'm talking to people to get something to happen. I'm rarely told no.
Yeah.
So if I am, I can normally come back, you know, after that initial pushback, and I'll have a better strategy. So I
And
think
that
that's a big.
to me, that sounds like sales. You know, if you need somebody to do something, to buy a service or product, and you can get them to say yes most of the time,
Yeah.
then that's kind of a sales component of your personality, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, just not a pushy type.
Well, yeah, I mean, sales doesn't have to, the best sales isn't pushy,
I
right? The
I know.
best,
I'm just saying. I want to
yeah,
call that out.
yeah, because the best type of sales is getting someone to want to buy your product or service.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they're saying, I want to do this. And I think
Yeah.
that strategic communication individualization combo does a good job of getting people there.
Yeah. Yeah,
How
I
do
think the individualization is probably the biggest component because,
yes,
you know, you really, it's interesting actually. A lot of times when I first meet people, I think they can almost be, some personalities can be put off by how interested you are in them because it's not the typical reaction, you know, not the typical engagement that you would get with someone you just meet. But
right,
I genuinely am interested in that person. I do want to know all about them because every person is like a, you know, a puzzle, right? And you know, we all hear our moms say that we're special or something, but everybody is special, and there's always something unique and interesting about someone. And so, like, getting to find that out, I think, really allows you to be effective in your approach, right? Because you do genuinely care about them.
and you know, I'm going to show this really quick since you bring it up. You know, if we take the top 5 strengths, guys, and we put them in order, and we do that over and over and over again, there's 33 million combinations of those. So when Matt says that each one of us is unique, you know, he senses it intuitively, but this is the data. And this is just looking at people from a strengths perspective only. So each one of you on this call today is 1 in 33 million people out there, which means none of us will ever get to meet someone like you ever again. And if we look at all 34 of your strengths, not just the top 5, it's 2.59 times 10 to the 36th power number of combinations. And again, that's strengths only. It's not the environment, it's not your religion, it's not your gender, you know, it's very specific to just the strengths. So what Matt senses intuitively from his individualization, that we are truly unique, is true. And individualizers really love to understand those preferences. So my question to you, Matt, then is how do you know, we're all learning from you today. How do you actually, you know, start to understand somebody at that individual level? Like, how do you go about doing that? How do you get to know them in
I
that
think
way?
I think a lot of it is just honed over years of experience. So a lot of it too is like all ask questions, right? And you kind of have to be careful because some personalities don't like being asked questions. They don't like being asked questions at all. They'll feel like it's you're interrogating them, right? And so at this stage, I feel like I can pick up on that pretty quick, especially when it's in person, based off of like body language, facial expressions, you know, a variety of things like that, you know, subtle cues. And then just like watching what they prefer, right? So like, do they smile over certain things? Do they get excited about stuff? And I'm talking about this really specific, but in an actual conversation, that's all being done, you know, automatically. I'm picking up on those cues automatically because of years of just having this personality type, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's a big way. A lot of it is just experience, intuitive, but then the experience on top of it, and talking to a lot of different people, right? So the more people I talk to, the more I will see patterns. And you got to be careful with that, right? Because I think for myself, it would be very interesting to hear what Rachel has to say about this. But for myself, you kind of get to a point where I'm like, oh, it's so easy to figure people out. They're so predictable, right? But there's a lot of danger with that because you can blind yourself, right? So I think also staying like humble
Mhm.
and realizing that people are very complex and you don't know everyone and you haven't encountered everybody's story. So everybody always has these little nuances or different triggers too, right? So different triggers, and it's just very interesting
And
to
one of the
encounter new
things
people.
one of the things you said that I find interesting is kind of the how you do it. You said you actually sense these individualities and preferences through communication, which
Yeah.
which makes sense. That if you're having a conversation with somebody, that's where you're getting a lot of your data or your observations and understanding how this person is wired.
Yeah, and a lot of it too is also like recognizing like, so for example, if I see someone that has like, let's say they have a sticker on their backpack and it's a certain genre of music, right? So let's say it's more like, like Radiohead, right? I'm probably not going to go up to that person and be like, oh, do you like Britney Spears, right? Because they would be like, no, because Britney Spears is extremely manufactured, right?
Yeah.
And Radiohead is supposed to not be about being manufactured,
Right.
and so things like that.
Yeah. Rachel, what are your thoughts? Did you have some additional thoughts to add to what Matt was saying?
Yeah, I thought that was all really good. Honestly, Matt, I feel like I could relate a lot to what you were saying about individualization, because I too feel like having conversation with people, that picking up on those cues are things, if strategic, you can apply those into your future relationship with someone in your personal life or even professional life, a client. So I definitely agree with that. I think how this plays out for me in particular, at an agency, I think you have an opportunity to work with a handful of different clients, which I think individualization is a great skill set to have, or a great gift, because you are looking for those things that are unique and different, and every client is so nuanced. I think for strategic in particular, I see that play out. I look at all the scenarios of where things could go, and I tend to think through if this, then that, and think through the bigger plan, and then work my way back on how to get there. So it's kind of like my mind is going ahead and then coming back, looking at data to make decisions. I think that's how strategy plays in, but yeah, communication and individualization, kind of to Matt's point. I really look for really what someone values, and you can tell, yeah, by reading people, by asking questions and having conversations, what they get excited about, and in particular, what clients' preferences are on. So for example, if people are reaching out and asking you questions via email, it may potentially be because you, A, maybe didn't explain it thoroughly enough, or B, because they have maybe a specific wound from a past experience, or something what dropped through a crack with another agency, or a different part in time. So you kind of like start to put together those pieces with, okay, they really care about this area. How can I over communicate and do that in an individualized way? Just to ensure that we're delivering on this. This is it's tailored to you specifically. It's not a cookie cutter strategy, but we're looking at your organization and its niche, and then how that strategy can come into play, if that makes sense.
It does. And what I loved what you said in the beginning was how you do all of that to ensure, the future relationship with that client or with whoever you're talking to. You have a focus on what is our future going to look like together. So let me focus on how I'm going to conduct this interaction right now, right here today, in order to drive the future results and the future interactions, which to me, that was fun to hear that futuristic start to come into play as you were talking. And it also looks like you have an element to your personality where you like to teach, potentially, where you like to learn new things and you like to continuously improve and master things, and then to teach that back to others, or maybe even consult with the learner. Is that true for you?
For me, yes, for sure. I love learning new things. As I was reflecting on my strengths kind of before this call, I was thinking about what a life or a career would look like if you stayed static in your knowledge for 5 or 10 years at a time. I think that would drive me nuts to just know that I wouldn't be moving towards something or progressing. I think the learner mentality plays itself out in so many different ways. One of my favorite sayings that my dad actually always told me growing up was, you don't learn from experience, just doing something over and over, you learn from evaluated experience. So looking at what happened, picking that apart, and in this case, learning from it. And so I think professionally in my career, I've had a lot of different opportunities with different jobs. And I think looking at it from a learner's perspective with that lens, you can glean so much insight into yourself, into your life, if you do take time to look back at mistakes or look back at successes and see how that can impact the future. But I always liked that saying because it's true for not just personally, but professionally and in client situations, and just evaluating things. And teaching and communicating, I think, is something I'm passionate about.
And so I have a question for you on that, because futurists tend to really spend, majority of their time, if not 100% of their time, thinking about the future and thinking forward. So do you have to put like specific blocks of time in place to step back and evaluate and look at things? Or do you kind of get like smacked in the face with something and you go, oh, maybe I should step back and look at this and reevaluate? Or like when does that look at the past piece come into play for you? And we can see here, guys, context is her 34 strength, and that's the history one. That's the one that looks back in the other direction. So I find it fascinating that she just said that sometimes she does stop and evaluate and look back, when that's, not necessarily a way that her brain works from a neuroscience perspective.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think doing that, stopping and looking back, is not natural for me. It doesn't, I think, being strategic, communicating, learning, that futuristic element, that's all I feel like more natural. So sometimes to do that, and you notice consistency is kind of at the bottom too, to do that on a consistent basis, it's almost like using tools or using specific experiences as a cue to go and do those things, because I do see there's value from learning from the past experiences, from evaluating, but it doesn't come as naturally as some of those other ones at the top.
What would be an example of a trigger that would trigger that, that you need to stop and look back and evaluate, or even just appreciate, something that has happened in the past? What's an example of like something that might trigger that for you? Maybe like a change in life or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be a life change. I think it could be a huge success professionally, or a huge failure. Honestly, either of them. I think all of us will go through those eventually in our career at one point or another.
Yeah.
But I think when those things do happen, it's important to look back and just to see what we can learn. I actually recently read a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I love that book. It talks a lot about how when you make incremental changes, it's kind of like interest, it just compounds over time. And so that book was life-changing. It was great to have that kind of tool in your pocket to think of events or changes and to trigger that, in a sense, to kind of think back and look at what you could do different.
Yeah. Any questions for Rachel or Matt at this time?
I do have a question. So when you get with someone that you're not familiar with, you do research into preparing for a meeting, or do you just use some basic method in the beginning of the meeting to try and determine things on how to direct the meeting?
I think that's to you guys, Matt or Rachel, if you guys use a method or a process.
Yeah, I would say it definitely depends on the context, right? So if it's just like somebody I'm meeting through an acquaintance, I'm not going to do like research. I may ask my friend about them, but I'm going to keep in mind that my friend may not be as analytical as I and be able to assess the person as accurately as I will be able to. So I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. If I'm going into like a work, professional environment and I have a meeting with someone new, I will sometimes glance at like a LinkedIn, or again, I will talk to coworkers or maybe someone I know that has encountered this person before to find out like what is their meeting style or what is their leadership style? How do they think about things, stuff like that. Just and sometimes I'll find that that's not actually true. Like the assessment I was given by someone else is not accurate. So I don't act on that right away, but I'll definitely keep that in my back pocket. So I kind of have a strategy, right, about how I want the meeting to go.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think it depends on the situation for sure, but it's always helpful just to have a bit of context for the person that you're talking to. Specifically, if I am meeting with someone new, a particular new client, or if it's new business meeting, I'll look specifically for any kind of connection points. Did they go to this school? Do I know someone that they do? Just to kind of make that bridge, because I think when you have that connectedness in a sense to someone that you're not familiar with, it's a little bit easier for them to be more open to talk to you.
So to me, it sounds like you both are very intuitive about this. But that if you're not getting it, or if, it's very formal, you need to be very prepared, then maybe there's some research that goes into it. Or you might, like, I know Matt will ask me if I introduce him to someone, give me a little context around this so that I know how to approach it initially. But then I think once he engages with someone, then he automatically starts picking up on all the cues. But does that sound true for you guys, that it's really intuitive through your strategic individualization? And then if you need more data, you can do some research or get additional, ask people some questions to get the information you need.
Yeah, I would say so.
Sorry, Rachel. I'll let you go.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's, yeah, exactly what you said, a little bit more intuitive. And if there is something you need to be a little more prepared for, yeah, do research. But I think the first interaction is very telling. So really doing a lot more listening in that than talking is huge, just because you are going to learn more about the person by hearing how they communicate, hearing what they talk about, the style that they interact with people. I think listening is huge.
Yeah, I've actually, I would definitely agree with Rachel about listening. And, one of my top 5 is analytical. So I love data, right? So like, I want the data, even if I don't think I'm going to need it. I just want it. I just want to know, right? Yeah. And that's fun to me too, because I get to find out more about the person that I'm asking, right? Which would kind of feed into my individualization. So it's like, it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Mm-hmm. But I definitely think listening and being a good listener, and like really, I remember watching some videos and reading a lot about that, because I was like, am I actually a good listener? I feel like I'm a good listener, right? But am I a good listener? Like, what's kind of like the standard that people talk about, psychologists talk about how to be a good listener? So that's something I've spent some time on, and I wasn't as good of a listener as I originally thought I was. So I think I've improved a lot on that. And I've actually had people point that out a couple times, which was really interesting to me in some interactions. They were like, you know what, I really want to meet you again, because I didn't get to, find out anything about you. You were just listening to me, so. So I think that's definitely a way to be effective, just really trying to be a sponge, right? We use that terminology, saying a lot, but really trying to just listen.
And I think you guys have both facets of your personality. I think you have the individualization, which is loving to learn about other people. And like, this is fun for both of you right now. You get to look at these, these people's strengths, these strangers' strengths, and get to know them and look at them in depth. So that listening part is really enjoyable. When you get to listen to their preferences and what motivates them and what makes someone tick, that's the key though, right? That's the piece you like to listen to. And then you have the other facet of your personality that also really enjoys getting up in front and presenting and communicating and having very clear, concise communication when you're interacting with somebody. So I feel like you have that good push and pull of listening sometimes and paying attention and looking for the details and observing, and then also able to interact in a social environment and communicate successfully and have a successful interaction with somebody from a verbal communication standpoint. So any more questions from the group that are lingering in your mind right now for these guys?
I'm personally just fascinated to hear from people who have individualization so high. I really feel what they're saying with all of this, and it feels rare. It feels like people are so caught up in their own things in their own mind. They're not listening to each other, and I think it has a whole lot to do with the lack of the individualization piece. They're not thinking about how they're affecting another person, or how the other person may want to be affected by a situation. I find it really interesting.
It is, and it's such a unique strength. It's actually found 16% of the time in a person's top 5 capacity, which leaves a whole slew of people, 85% of the world, that doesn't think this way, at least in a top 5 capacity. And they are truly the group of people that just find other people and their uniquenesses and their preferences fascinating. Some people are very comfortable with people that are like them, right? So I've got relator. If I can relate with you, I get really cozy and comfortable. If you're different than me, you actually scare the hell out of me. You know, it's like, I don't know you. I don't know how you think. I don't know how to work with this. I don't know what this is. And I can kind of panic and backpedal because I'm like, I don't know what this is saying about you. So I have to go into my learning mode and my deliberative mode and my intellection mode and be like, okay, what is this? Which I actually really enjoy. Of course, I enjoy learning about people that are different. For the sake of just learning how humans are and what can go right or wrong in the brain and the hormones and all that kind of stuff. I find that stuff fascinating. But the individualization personalities don't react that way. They react with this really extreme, like, oh, you're different. You're interesting. That's something I haven't seen before. What is this? This is unique. I want to talk to you. What is this? So they aren't afraid of different. In fact, they're attracted to different, and they really appreciate those, those unique differences. And so then they're like that group of people that will actually like want to talk to you to get to know you, rather than, hey, everybody look at me and I'd like to, share everything about myself. Really enjoyable to talk to them for that reason.
I agree with that. I will say I have individualization as 4, but I have deliberative as 1,
Okay.
and empathy as 3. So although I love to listen, I am very cautious about what to say back to them. I love hearing about it, but I'm not necessarily comfortable.
Yeah.
Communication situation, just because I'm so cautious of what to say, because I want to be so respectful of them, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. And if you don't have communication high, or if you don't have learner high, which likes to teach, or if you don't have relator high, which likes to be open and transparent and share, then you're not going to necessarily have those facets to your personality. So what are your top 5 real quick, Stacy? Deliberative,
consistency, empathy, individualization, and responsibility.
Okay. Yeah. So just a very deep listener. Yeah. Matt, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say something. So I was going to take it a little more to a personal level. So this may be TMI. I hope it's not. So Brandy and I chat all the time because we're good friends. And so I chat with her about dating and relationships, right? And so I think individualizer really shows up in an interesting way with dating. Because like I will meet people and I'm like, oh, you're different. This is so interesting, right? But a lot of people I meet, they don't really want someone different. They're really looking not quite a clone, but like slightly different. Whereas I want the differences. I want to work through the differences. I want, the strategic side. I want someone who complements, right? To where we are better as 2 versus 1. And so I think that's really interesting to see that a majority of people do not think that way. They're like, no, I just want things to be super easy, lots of compatibility. And frankly, for me, that's a little boring. I want the differences. They're really interesting to me.
And one of the things you just said was you want someone that complements you, because one of the roots understandings that individualizers have is that two people that come together in a meaningful way are a productive or optimized team. And individualizers are very good at pulling teams of people together, working with each one of those individuals individually, but getting the team to, get all synced up and actually be very productive and very efficient, because they just know how to partner and pair people together in a way that it seems easy, right? If someone likes somebody, pair them up together, they'll work well together. And that's not always the case, but that is, if you don't have individualization, that's one way to at least try and get started, is just let people that like to work together. And so that, that being said, the fact that individualizers love to work with people individually, but they're also really good at pulling teams of people together and creating optimized, productive teams. I heard you say that basically in a relationship sense, instead of having two people that do the exact same thing, that's, only going to get you one result. But if you have two people that do two different things, then you can do a whole bunch more as a team.
Yeah, to echo that, in a professional environment, the worst manager I've ever had in my life, like just terrible. He definitely did not have individualization. That had to be his very last strength. Like, it absolutely had to have been.
You would
Because
know.
he never showed interest in the team, did not care. And when he hired people, every person he hired was just like a bomb on the team. And I noticed that after like the second person, like they would come in, they would not mesh well at all. Like their strengths, their passions, what they were good at, just would cause roadblocks actually for the team. It was kind of crazy. I've never been in an environment like that before. And I actually offered one time, because I'm very good at that. I offered one time to help interview. I was like, why don't you let me do the technical portion, right? And like he just wanted complete control over it. And it was very interesting. Whereas I feel that I have definitely the natural ability to be able to see, well, these people are going to match up well, their passions are in different areas, so they're not going to step on each other. They're going to work really well together. It's interesting.
Yeah, and what it sounds like you had is somebody that might have had like a strong command, that wanted lots of control, but then also hired people that were like him. So a lot of times people will hire people that look like them, feel like them, smell like them, because they're successful. So if they hire somebody just like them, then they can ensure that those people are also going to be successful. And then, like you said, Matt, what those people don't realize they're doing is they're not getting a functioning team. So they're getting a bunch of individuals that might, perform well by themselves, but they're not necessarily coming together as a team to produce.
I think it's interesting. Oh, go ahead, Brandy.
I was just going to ask you, Rachel, if you had any thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying, I think that's interesting, Matt, that you pointed that out, kind of like how you aspired for someone to manage you that has some of your strengths, that kind of speaks to you in that way. I think for me in particular, communication is huge. And if I have someone that manages me that isn't communicative, or that does not want to make time to communicate, that's one of my things. I don't know. It's just interesting to see, but not everyone's driven like that. I know people that I work with, and they're kind of fine with filling in the, the blanks, but I really like communicating. And I think there's, communication brings clarity, and I like having clarity. So that's kind of an interesting trait that I've seen that I enjoy in a manager. And then also, yeah, that futuristic piece of them being able to almost like seeing your potential and putting you in a place where you're going to thrive. Because I think if you have, honestly, I think with any professional, if you don't have a manager with that, it can be a little disheartening for someone that does want to learn as a learner, that wants to grow and wants to, see the bigger picture, but having a manager that doesn't do that, I think could be stifling. But I think those two are ones that stick out to me.
You made me think of two things. One, when people have the communication strength in the bottom, clear down at 34, 33, 34 in the 30s, the communication is hard. It's like, it's an effort, it's energy, it is difficult, it's not enjoyable. So just one thing to remember, that it's not that people are trying to proactively be difficult or to not communicate, or they don't want to communicate. It's more of like, it's so much energy and they have to reach so far down to grab that, to just bring it up to actually speak. And they may speak in other ways, but verbal communication can be extremely difficult for someone who has communication, and maybe they don't have learner, because learners like to teach, right? But so if they have all their extroverted strengths down the bottom, it can be just really, it could be almost impossible for them to try to make that happen. The second thought I had was to share with you guys that my best manager, hands down, best manager, had individualization. I could not believe that all this guy did was sit in a room with me one-on-one and let me talk and then send me on my way. And I did my best work under him. I helped create piloted a consulting business under him. I was given amazing opportunities. And then I also developed this CliftonStrengths program, Strengthology, under him. So individualization, I know sometimes you guys as a personality will maybe not give yourselves credit for what you actually do in this world with that strength, but because people who work for you have the best experiences, they grow and develop, they get to do their best work and be their best selves under you, they will always love you, they will always feel loyal to you. And you know, I never wanted to leave that manager ever. I wanted to stay working for him my whole life, and I got moved. You know, so things change. But I want you guys to understand how important that strength is, really truly, on just a simple management basis with the individuals on a team, like a direct reporting manager relationship. It's you guys are the pillar of other people's success, and that's really, really important. Other thoughts, questions from anybody on the call? Not yet. Hey, if you do, just jump in, okay? Flag me down.
Can we look at the bottom of their stuff again?
Yes, yes. Can we look really quick at the differences in their top and then go down there, Tad? Can we do that? Okay, so you guys can see they have strategic up here, they have communication, they have the individualization. Futuristic is a big difference between the two of them, which surprises me a bit as well, because futuristic and strategic are usually a little closer by, but for Matt, his futuristic is a little bit lower. The learner's really close. The achiever is right here, neck and neck. We also see a huge difference in personality from them with the restorative and the analytical. So Matt's got this, you know, much more data. What's the problem? What's the root cause? Let's solve it. You know, more of a technical type strength pairing here than Rachel has. They've both got pretty high responsibility, pretty high significance, pretty high competition. We get focus over here on Rachel's, which is, you know, being able to get rid of all distractions and just focus on a goal. So it's all about setting the goal and achieving the goal and getting there efficiently. So that pops up in her profile. Matt gets the self-assurance over here, which is the extreme confidence in one's abilities. They both have a bit of woo. And then, you know, we start to dwindle off of things we don't really tap into down here. So if we look at the bottom, let's see what we have. So harmony is at the bottom for both of you. This is because strategic is at the top. Strategic typically doesn't mind conflict and doesn't mind, you know, just saying whatever, you know, what's the problem? What do we need to address? Let's just move forward. Where harmony can be a bit more passive and be like, let's say it nicely. Let's make it peaceful. Let's just be very accommodating in the approach, where strategic is a bit more direct. Deliberative is at the bottom. So that tells me that both of you have no problem making decisions and making them fast. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I feel like I actually have, maybe over the last like 10 years, started to try and balance that a little more. Because like my risk appetite it doesn't cap. I'm actually attracted to more risky things, right? Because typically there's more of a reward with it, but then you know, you also have to think about how much of the downside is there, right? So, and try to balance that out. But that's not it's not how my mind typically works. That's something I've had to try to build over a few years.
Yeah, you know, I met with someone this week who had command and deliberative, which I've never seen before in my life. And she said, I'm very comfortable with risk, but I'm also very calculated in the risks I take based on that deliberative. And I thought, well, that's very interesting, right? To be happy to take the risks and to jump ship if you need to, but then to also take the time to calculate and make sure, double check, just sort of like stop and take a break really quick before jumping.
I feel like I can make decisions quickly, but because adaptability is so far down for me, I like strategically weigh the risk before making a decision, because I like change can be difficult for me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting factor in there too.
Yeah, that is interesting. So you're like, if I'm going to make a decision, I'm going to make it and stick with it. So I better make a good one. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
What else we got down here? Consistency is pretty low. Consistency is opposite of individualization, because obviously an individualized approach is not a consistent approach. So you guys may lack some consistency, balance, equality type stuff. In your mind, it's like to treat everybody fair or equally is to treat them different. Versus the consistent mentality, which is just treat everybody with the same, treat everybody the same.
Connectedness.
Connectedness is low. Tell us about the connectedness really quick, Tad, so that they can hear what that connectedness does.
Well, that's looking for connection to everything else and making sure that you're connecting in every way possible, as far as I can understand it.
Yeah. So it's sort of that architect connecting the small with the big, connecting all the pieces, all the dots, everything across the globe, but then also being able to just really connect well with lots of different humans. It's one of the more spiritual ones as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like strategic would somewhat overlap with that. But then when you talk about like connecting to people, I would definitely say I'm somewhat polarizing. You either like me or you don't. Like there's really not much of an in between in my experience. So
that's a good point.
I think that's just because of the stronger personality, right?
That's a good point. Tad has both strategic and connectedness, and lots of people tend to love him and gravitate towards him because of that connectedness. Yeah.
I think also it's if you're viewing, I don't know, Matt, if you have this too, but if you view yourself as unique and individual, like it kind of changes the way that you think about yourself and you do connect with other people. So I don't know, I think that impacts a little bit of connectedness to other people.
I mean, I definitely feel like with the individualization, there's some people that I'll never be able to really be connected to in some ways, because like we're so different on something, and like bridging that gap just seems impossible or massive, monumental amount of effort that it's just not worth it.
And you have relator, Matt, which is usually the one that likes to hang out with people that are like them as, your close companions and friends. If it can have shared experiences, it feels really connected. So it will it will hang out with people that want to do the things they want to do. And then it will also be open and vulnerable, which is why you shared about relationships earlier, because you don't mind just putting everything out on the table. You've got a lot of transparency in your natural personality with that relator. So it's cool to me that you have both, right? That you really are interested in individuals and can cater to someone else's personality, but then you also have this facet of your personality that likes to relate to people as well.
Yeah, I'll say that when I'm like hanging out with somebody, my goal is to make sure that they have a good time. That's very fun and gratifying to me for them to have a good time.
Yeah. So anything else that anybody would like to ask or share today? Any other thoughts from the group? Okay, well, here's what we'll do. I want to show you guys a few things that are coming out in Strengthology Insights this week that are going to be released. You guys get the first view of it. Matt and Rachel, thank you so much for being here and sharing with us today all about yourselves and about your strengths. We really, really appreciate your time and your openness.
Glad to be here.
Yes, thank you. And it's so good to see both of you. So, okay. So next week also, we're going to be talking to two ladies who have arranger and significance. So that should be a really interesting conversation. And then I want to show you some of the new stuff coming out on Strengthology Insights. So if you have a personal subscription, you are also now going to get strength language coming out. So this is going to show you what people with, with your strengths will say, what words they will use. And it's also the words that you would want to use, with those types of people. And then if you're a manager or a leader, and I actually think this is a new view too. It will show a prettier version of this. Trying to think if there's any that. So if you're a manager, you have the leadership subscription. When you have a group and you want to see somebody's results, and you click on their stuff to see that, whoa, that's not a good example, is it? Well, sure, why not? Gerald has lots of influence, guys. This is a test environment, by the way. Now the leaders have an executive summary, so they can see what type of leader they are, and they can share this with others to express, the type of leadership someone can expect as they come into a new organization. And then there's also a communication section. So the managers can see, hey, this Gerald guy communicates this way. And if I want to effectively communicate with him, then I need to do this, or I might need to refrain from doing this based on the strength. And then we also have, the things that you can say that will allow you to connect with that person. But then there's the things that you can say that you're actually disengaging that person by saying certain things. You're either engaging or disengaging them based on their strengths. And then there's also a section for leaders with groups that have manager tips around how do you actually understand this person, how do you support them, how do you empower them, and how do you get the best out of them by refraining from doing certain things. So that's the new stuff that's coming out this week for any of you guys who have the various subscriptions.
Looks really good.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Tad. I'm glad that looks exciting because I'm super excited about it. I love it. All right. Anything else, or are we done for the day? Nada? All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to do this. I hope you learned a lot today. And as always, just reach out to me if there's anything else you'd like to see in these calls.
Thanks.
Thanks, Randy. Bye.
Welcome. Have a good day, guys. Bye.